You are not failing at manifestation. You are suffocating it. That is the part nobody wants to hear, because it removes comfort. It removes hope dressed up as effort, and it puts responsibility back where it belongs. Most people believe manifestation fails because they do not believe hard enough. That belief is wrong. Manifestation fails because they watch it too closely. You check for signs. You scan your reality every morning. You count days. You read meanings into small coincidences. You ask silently, is it working yet? You tell yourself you are just being aware. But awareness is not neutral. Attention is not passive. Observation is an action. The moment you watch something with expectation, you enter it with tension. And tension is not creation. Tension is control. Control is fear in a polite form. You are not trusting the process. You are supervising it. Quantum does not respond to supervision. It responds to state. This is where most teachings collapse. They tell you to visualize. They tell you to affirm. They tell you to feel as if, but they forget to tell you the most dangerous part. If you do all of that while waiting for proof, you are broadcasting lack. Waiting is not patience. Waiting is a statement. It says, this is not here yet. Reality listens to that. You can repeat the right words all day. You can imagine the perfect scene. But if your nervous system is leaning forward, checking, measuring, hoping, you are not in the state of having. You are in the state of almost, and almost never manifests. Look closely at your behavior, not your thoughts. Behavior tells the truth. If you feel the need to check signs, you do not feel safe yet. If you need reassurance, you are not anchored. If you are watching the field, you do not trust it. This is not a moral failure. This is a mechanical one. A system under constant inspection cannot stabilize. It keeps adjusting to the observer. It never settles. The same applies here. When you visualize and then immediately look at your life to see if anything changed, you collapse the process. Not because you did something evil, but because you interrupted the self-organizing phase. Creation requires a quiet middle. Every real shift has a silent gap, a space where nothing appears to move, a phase where the old identity is no longer running and the new one has not fully loaded. That gap feels uncomfortable to people who need confirmation. So they poke it, they interfere, they watch, and the moment they do, the system reacts to them, not to the intention. You think you are being disciplined. In reality, you are being impatient. Manifestation does not ask you to believe harder. It asks you to stop hovering. Stop monitoring the soil after you plant the seed. Stop digging it up to see if roots are forming. Stop asking the ground if it heard you. The ground does not answer questions. It responds to conditions. If the condition is calm, certainty, it grows. If the condition is anxious inspection, it pauses. This is why people who forget their intention often receive it. Not because forgetting is magic, but because forgetting removes interference. They stop emitting need. They stop watching. They stop checking. And in that absence of noise, the system finishes its work. You do not manifest by wanting. You manifest by settling into a version of yourself that no longer needs to look. Being is not pretending. Being is not acting. Being is internal consistency. It is the absence of inner commentary, the absence of future leaning, the absence of bargaining with reality. When you are in that state, you do not ask when. You do not ask how. You do not ask for signs, not because you are superior, but because the question no longer exists. Most people never experience this state because they confuse effort with alignment. They think more focus equals more power. In truth, more focus often equals more noise. There is a difference between clarity and fixation. Clarity is calm. Fixation is tense. Quantum responds to clarity. If this makes you uncomfortable, that is a signal. Not that the message is wrong, but that part of you still believes watching equals control. It does not. Control collapses emergent. Trust allows it. This is the break point. The place where many people stop listening, because it demands stillness instead of action, presence instead of technique. If you can stay here, you are ready. Stop watching, start being. That is not a slogan. It is an instruction, and it is precise. The moment you check if it is working, it stops working. Not because the universe is cruel, not because you did it wrong, but because checking is an action, and that action carries a message. You think you are being responsible. You think you are being precise. You think you are making sure nothing is missed. In reality, you are interfering. The more carefully you try to do it right, the quieter reality becomes. You affirm, you visualize, you follow the steps exactly, and then nothing responds. That silence is not punishment. It is feedback. Reality goes silent when it is being watched too closely. Most people misunderstand silence. They interpret it as delay. They assume something is blocked. They panic and add more effort, more affirmations, more checking, more techniques, more monitoring. And with every added layer, the signal weakens because observation is not neutral. Every time you look for results, you are asking a question, and every question carries an assumption. The assumption is this is not here yet. That assumption is the broadcast. Quantum does not respond to words. It responds to state. You can say, I trust all day long, but if your body is leaning forward, scanning for confirmation, you are not trusting. You are waiting. Waiting is not patience. Waiting is tension stretched over time. That tension is readable. When you try to do manifestation correctly, you often do the opposite of what works. You tighten, you control, you watch. You become the manager of the process instead of the condition for it. The paradox is simple and uncomfortable. The more you try to make it happen, the less space you give it to happen. Creation requires space, not effort, not supervision. Space. A system under constant observation cannot settle. It keeps adjusting to the observer. It stays reactive. This is not spiritual language. This is mechanics. Imagine trying to fall asleep while checking every minute if you are asleep yet. The act of checking prevents the state. Manifestation works the same way. When you visualize and immediately scan your life for changes, you interrupt the process. You collapse the field back into the old pattern, not because the intention was weak, but because the follow-up action contradicted it. Doing it right becomes doing it wrong when it is driven by fear of absence. Most people are not manifesting from desire. They are manifesting from urgency. Urgency always leaks lack. You tell yourself you are aligning, but your nervous system is asking, where is it? That question never goes unanswered. Reality answers it by staying where it is. Silence appears when alignment is forming, but silence terrifies those who need reassurance. So they break the silence. They check signs. They read into coincidences. They look for movement. And the moment they do, alignment pauses. Silence is not delay. Silence is stabilization. It is the phase where the system reorganizes without interference, where old patterns release, where new structures form quietly. If you interrupt that phase, the system does not punish you. It simply restarts. This is why many people feel stuck in cycles. They almost align, they feel the calm, then they get nervous. They check, they interfere, and the cycle resets. Not because they are unworthy, but because they do not tolerate quiet. Alignment feels empty before it feels full. That emptiness is not loss. It is clearance. The mind hates clearance. It wants proof. It wants feedback. It wants movement. So it reaches, and reaching is the signal of not having. The work is not to do more. The work is to do less. Less checking, less correcting, less micromanaging reality. The moment you stop asking if it is working, something shifts. Not outside first. Inside, your body relaxes. Your attention drops back into the present. Your identity loosens its grip on outcome. That is alignment. Alignment is not excitement. It is not intensity. It is not constant focus. It is quiet agreement with what is already forming. People think alignment feels powerful. In truth, it feels neutral. No rush, no anxiety, no commentary. That neutrality is what allows the field to complete its movement. You do not need to chase silence. You need to stop disturbing it. If nothing seems to be happening, resist the urge to interfere. That urge is the old identity trying to stay relevant. Let the silence do its work. You do not lose momentum by stopping observation. You gain coherence. The field organizes itself when you stop leaning into it. This is the contradiction that filters people. Those who need constant reassurance will leave here. Those who can sit in quiet will understand. You do not manifest by effort. You manifest by congruence. Congruence does not ask questions. It does not wait. It does not watch. It allows. Silence is not delay. It is alignment. And alignment does not announce itself. If you need signs, this message is not for you. That sentence alone removes most people, because most people want reassurance more than truth. They want proof before they relax. They want confirmation before they commit. They want reality to raise its hand and say yes. That is not faith. That is negotiation. You look for numbers. You look for symbols. You look for small coincidences and ask if they mean something. You tell yourself you are being aware, but what you are really doing is asking for permission to trust. And trust that needs permission is not trust. It is doubt wearing spiritual language. The desire for signs always comes from the same place. Fear of being wrong, fear of wasting time, fear of letting go too soon. So you ask reality to prove itself. You ask it to reassure you. You ask it to meet you halfway. But reality does not respond to questioning. It responds to commitment. When you ask for signs, you are not listening. You are testing. Testing creates distance. Distance creates delay. This is why people who constantly look for signs feel stuck. They are not moving forward. They are hovering. Hovering is not movement. Hovering is hesitation stretched over time. A belief that requires evidence is not a belief. It is a condition, and conditions are read as lack. You do not realize this because the mind is subtle. It tells you that checking is wisdom. That skepticism keeps you safe. That confirmation is responsible. But deep down, the body knows. Every time you check for a sign, there is a tightening, a small contraction, a leaning forward. That lean says, I am not there yet. Reality hears that clearly. People who move fast do not do so because they are lucky. They move because they do not ask for permission from the field. They do not wait for signs to begin trusting their direction. They decide, and then they live from that decision. Decision is different from hope. Hope waits. Decision commits. When you commit, you stop asking. When you stop asking, things begin to move. This is the uncomfortable truth. Reality does not reward belief. It responds to identity. Identity does not need signs. Identity acts as if, not pretending, not imagining, existing. The moment you need proof, you have stepped out of identity and back into wanting. Wanting is a signal. It says, this is missing. The field does not argue with that. It agrees. So it continues to show you absence. This is not a punishment. It is accuracy. Most people say they believe, but their behavior says otherwise. They believe on good days. They believe when they feel inspired. They believe until silence appears. Silence is the test. When nothing confirms you, do you stay the same? Or do you start asking questions? If you start asking questions, you are never anchored. Anchoring does not look dramatic. It looks boring. It looks like not checking your phone for signs. It looks like not reading into random events. It looks like not explaining your intention to the universe every morning. It looks like living as if the decision has already been integrated. That state does not feel exciting. It feels calm, and calm feels empty to those addicted to feedback. So they create noise. They search for signs. They look for reassurance. And the moment they do, they step out of alignment. This is why signs often appear after you stop looking, not because stopping triggers magic, but because stopping removes interference. The field does not need to convince you. It responds when you stop asking it to. There is a maturity point in this work, a line you cross quietly. On one side, you need validation. On the other side, you do not. That line is not crossed by learning more techniques. It is crossed by tolerance for uncertainty. People who need signs cannot tolerate uncertainty. They need to know they are right before they relax. But creation requires the opposite. You relax before, that is why most people never experience real movement. They are waiting for certainty in a process that only responds after commitment. You cannot manifest and negotiate at the same time. Negotiation says, convince me. Manifestation says, I am already here. One asks, the other assumes. Reality moves for assumption, not for requests. This is why confident people seem to get results without effort. Not because they are better, but because they do not pause to question their direction. They do not stop to ask if this is working. They move as if it is. That movement creates coherence. Coherence is what reality follows. If this message irritates you, notice that irritation is a sign that part of you still wants proof. That part is not wrong. It is just not in charge of creation. Creation begins when that part is no longer leading. You do not need to kill doubt. You need to stop obeying it. Doubt can exist without steering. When you stop asking for signs, you reclaim authority. You stop outsourcing trust. You stop asking reality to prove itself worthy of your belief. You become the source. That shift is quiet. No fireworks. No announcements. Just a subtle change in posture. Less leaning, more standing. And from that stance, things move. Not because you demanded it, but because you stop demanding proof. Reality moves when you stop asking it to prove itself. That is not motivation. It is mechanics. And it only works for those who are ready to let go of reassurance. That anxiety you feel after visualizing is not excitement. It feels similar at first, a quickening in the chest, a sense of anticipation, a subtle buzz that tells you something is happening, but excitement expands, anxiety tightens. And most people feel the second one. You sit quietly, you imagine what you want, you see it clearly, you feel it briefly. Then a thought appears. When will it come? That single question changes everything. It pulls you out of the state you just touched. It collapses presence into waiting. It turns creation into monitoring. What you feel next is not inspiration. It is friction. That friction is the conflict between wanting and not having, between touching the state and stepping back from it, between saying yes internally and asking where it is externally. This conflict is the real problem. Not belief, not technique, not effort. After visualizing, many people feel restless. They feel alert. They feel watchful. They assume this means they did it right. They assume energy is moving. In truth, energy is split. Part of you stepped into the version that has another part stayed behind to check if it worked. Those two parts pull in opposite directions. One says this is done. The other says prove it. The body feels that contradiction immediately as tension, as anxiety, as subtle pressure. That feeling is often misinterpreted as momentum, but momentum feels smooth. This feels sharp. Creation does not feel sharp. The mind wants to understand. So it explains the tension as excitement, but the body knows the difference. Excitement does not ask questions. Anxiety does. The moment you ask when the state is gone. This is why so many people feel worse after visualizing, not better. They touch alignment for a second. Then they step out of it by checking. The nervous system cannot hold both at once. You cannot be in the state of having and the state of waiting simultaneously. One cancels the other. Waiting is not neutral. It is a posture. It leans forward. That lean tells reality something is missing. Reality responds accurately. This is not failure. It is feedback. The anxiety is not telling you that manifestation is hard. It is telling you that you left the state too quickly. Most teachings never explain this part. They encourage repetition. They encourage intensity. But repetition without resolution strengthens the conflict. Each time you visualize and then immediately look outward for change, you train the system to expect absence. The mind thinks repetition builds power. The body experiences repetition as pressure. Pressure creates noise. Noise prevents organization. The field does not respond to effort. It responds to coherence. Coherence means all parts agree. The part that wants, the part that expects, the part that acts. When one part wants and another part doubts, coherence breaks. The anxiety you feel is not a sign to push harder. It is a signal to stop interfering. It is the moment where less is required, not more. After visualization, the correct move is not thinking. It is settling. Settling means letting the image dissolve without commentary, letting the feeling fade without grabbing it, letting the moment pass without checking. That is what allows integration. Most people interrupt integration because they confuse stillness with loss. When the feeling fades, they panic. They think they are losing alignment, so they try to bring it back. That attempt creates tension again. Real alignment does not need to be held. It anchors itself. If you need to hold it, it is not integrated yet. Integration feels ordinary, almost boring. The mind expects fireworks. The body prefers quiet. This is why the system resists when you chase sensation. Chasing sensation creates dependence. Dependence creates fear of loss. Fear of loss keeps you in wanting. The conflict continues. Resolution does not come from stronger desire. It comes from releasing the contradiction. The contradiction ends when you stop asking. When you no longer need to know when you no longer need to feel something special. When you no longer need to confirm, that is when reality begins to rearrange. Not because you demanded it, but because the signal stabilized. The field organizes around stable signals. An anxious signal keeps changing. A settled signal holds. Most people underestimate how subtle this is. They think anxiety means something is wrong. They think calm means nothing is happening. In truth, anxiety means you are interfering. Calm means the process has space. You do not resolve this by forcing calm. You resolve it by understanding the mechanism. When you see that checking creates tension, you stop checking, not by discipline, by clarity. Clarity removes compulsion. You stop chasing signs because you see that chasing delays. You stop monitoring because you feel how it disrupts. This is not willpower. It is comprehension. The moment the contradiction dissolves, the body relaxes. Breath deepens. Attention returns to the present. That return is not passive. It is powerful. Presence is the absence of conflict. And absence of conflict is what allows movement. You do not need to feel good all the time. You need to feel aligned. Alignment is quiet agreement. No debate, no bargaining, just internal consistency. From that place, there is no anxiety after visualization, because there is no need to visualize again. The image did its job. It pointed the system, then it left. Holding onto it would only create noise. Creation completes itself in silence. No tension, no chase, no noise. That is not a mantra. It is a description of a resolved system. And resolved systems move on their own. The observer is the problem. That statement sounds confrontational because it removes a comforting idea, the idea that watching gives control. Most people believe observation is passive. They think looking is harmless. They think awareness improves outcomes. In reality, observation changes the system. This is not philosophy. It is mechanics. The moment you observe with intention, you enter the field. You influence what you look at, not with force. With presence, you assume watching keeps things on track. That monitoring prevents mistakes. That staying alert protects you. But in complex systems, constant observation creates instability. You have seen this before, just not named it. When someone watches you work too closely, you tense up. When you are evaluated constantly, your flow disappears. When every move is measured, spontaneity dies. The system does not relax. It performs. Manifestation behaves the same way. When you set an intention and then keep checking reality, you are not neutral. You are applying pressure. That pressure is subtle, but it is enough to collapse potential. The field does not respond well to supervision. You think observation equals awareness, but awareness does not lean forward. Observation does. Leaning forward is the posture of lack. You are saying without words, I need to see this to believe it. That sentence alone destabilizes the process. In quantum systems, measurement forces resolution. Possibility collapses into a fixed outcome before it is ready. The same principle applies internally. When you watch the process too closely, you force it to resolve prematurely. You pull it back into familiar patterns. You interrupt emergence. Most people do not realize this because they confuse effort with effectiveness. They think more attention equals more power. But power in these systems comes from coherence, not focus. Coherence requires space. Space is what observation removes. When you constantly monitor, you do not allow the system to self-organize. You keep it reacting to you. You become noise. This is uncomfortable to hear because it suggests that your involvement is the issue, not your desire, not your worth, your involvement. The mind resists this idea. It wants to participate. It wants to help, but help is not always helpful. In natural systems, stability emerges when interference stops. Water clears when you stop stirring. Sleep arrives when you stop checking for it. Insight appears when you stop forcing answers. The same applies here. When you visualize and then repeatedly scan your life for results, you keep stirring the water. You wonder why it stays cloudy. The observer effect is not mystical. It is practical. Your attention carries expectation. Expectation carries tension. Tension creates distortion. Distortion prevents stabilization. This is why people who let go unexpectedly see change. They stop watching. They stop interfering. And the system finds its balance. You think stepping back means giving up. It does not. It means trusting the structure you activated. Trust is not belief. Trust is non-interference. You trust gravity by not checking if it still works. You trust digestion by not supervising it. You trust breathing by letting it happen. You do not improve these processes by watching them. You disrupt them. Manifestation is no different. The field organizes itself when you stop leaning into it. This requires humility. The humility to accept that you do not need to manage everything. That your role is to set direction, not oversee execution. Most people cannot do this because watching gives them a sense of safety. If I am watching, I am in control. That belief is false. Watching is often a substitute for trust, and trust is what stabilizes the system. When you remove the observer, something unexpected happens. Things feel quiet. That quiet can feel uncomfortable, like nothing is happening. But that is the point. Silence is the condition for reorganization. In silence, patterns loosen. In silence, new structures form. In silence, the system breathes. When you step back, you allow this breathing. You are not abandoning the process. You are completing your role in it. Most teachings never emphasize this because stepping back cannot be sold as effort. It does not feel active. It does not feel productive, but it is precise. The observer wants feedback. The field needs space. You cannot give both at the same time. If you need reassurance, you will keep observing. If you keep observing, you will keep collapsing potential. This is not a judgment. It is a choice point. You either remain the observer or you become the condition. The condition does not watch. It allows. Allowing is not passive. It is stable. Stability is what reality aligns with. When you step back, the noise drops. The signal clears. You stop asking if it is working because the question itself disappears. That disappearance is the sign of alignment, not numbers, not symbols, not coincidences. Alignment feels like less effort, less urgency, less commentary. You move on with your life. And while you are not watching, the system completes itself. This is the paradox. The observer believes they are helping. In truth, they are delaying. Step back. Let the field breathe. It knows what to do when you stop standing over it. Manifestation fails right before a timeline shift. That moment feels confusing. Nothing responds. Nothing confirms. Nothing moves the way it used to. You do the same things. You hold the same intentions, but reality goes quiet. Most people assume something broke. They assume alignment was lost. They assume they made a mistake. They did not. What they are experiencing is the crossing. Every real change passes through a zone where the old no longer functions and the new has not appeared yet. That zone feels empty, unresponsive, strangely slow. The mind hates this phase. It wants progress to be visible. It wants feedback. It wants motion. So when nothing answers, it panics. But silence at this stage is not failure. It is separation. The previous timeline is dissolving. The habits that once produced results no longer activate the field. The signals that used to work no longer land. That is not punishment. It is evidence that you are no longer in the same place. The system is clearing. Before a shift, reality often becomes dull. Color drains. Motivation drops. Synchronicities stop. This is not regression. It is decoupling. The old timeline loses grip before the new one stabilizes. People misread this pause because they expect transitions to feel powerful. They expect energy. They expect signs. In truth, transitions feel neutral. Nothing to hold, nothing to chase, nothing to interpret, just a gap. That gap is where most people turn back. They reapply effort. They force techniques. They go back to what used to work, and by doing so, they interrupt the crossing. A timeline shift requires patience, not action. Patience here does not mean waiting with hope. It means staying present without interference. The crossing is delicate. If you keep pulling for confirmation, you snap back. If you demand response, you collapse into the old pattern. This is why many people feel they almost changed their life but never did. They reached the edge. They felt the quiet. They got scared and they retreated. The mind interprets stillness as danger. It associates silence with loss, so it moves. But movement at this stage is interference. During a shift, the correct response is restraint. Do not push forward. Do not analyze backward. Let the gap exist. The gap is not empty. It is uncommitted. Everything that was tied to the old identity is disengaging. Roles, expectations, reactions. That disengagement feels like nothingness, but it is preparation. Think of it as a bridge where neither side is under your feet. You are suspended. Suspension is uncomfortable, but it is temporary. If you do not interrupt it, most people interrupt because they interpret discomfort as a problem. They think something must be done. But the most precise action here is no action. The crossing completes itself when you stop trying to complete it. This is where trust becomes practical, not belief, not optimism. Trust as non-interference. You trust by not reaching for reassurance. You trust by not forcing meaning. You trust by allowing the dullness to exist. When you do that, the system reorganizes slowly, quietly, without announcement. Then one day, something feels different, not dramatic, just stable. You realize you are responding differently, choosing differently, existing differently, and reality follows. But this only happens if you allow the crossing to finish. If you interrupt it, you stay between timelines, stuck in a loop where nothing feels right and nothing changes. This is why patience is not passive here. It is active restraint. Restraint from checking, restraint from fixing, restraint from going back. the field needs continuity to settle into a new pattern. If you keep touching it, it keeps resetting. Many people think manifestation stopped working when in fact it succeeded. It moved them out of an old alignment. They just did not recognize the phase that followed. The moment things feel slow and unresponsive is often the last moment before reorganization. It feels like loss because the old reference points are gone, but nothing new can form while the old still answers. So the old must go silent. That silence is not abandonment, it is transition. If you can tolerate that silence, you cross. If you cannot, you return. This is not about strength. It is about tolerance for uncertainty. Those who cross are not braver. They are quieter. They do not demand clarity mid-crossing. They do not interrupt with urgency. They let the unknown do its work. The crossing does not announce completion. It reveals itself in stability. Suddenly you do not need to ask what is happening. You are simply there, and the question disappears. That disappearance is the sign, not numbers, not messages, not external confirmation, just internal coherence. If you are in the slow, dull, unresponsive phase, do not label it failure. Label it crossing, and do not interrupt the crossing, because the moment you do, you reset the distance you already traveled. Stay still, stay present, stay out of the way. The timeline shift completes when you allow it to. Do not interrupt the crossing. Most people manifest wrong and call it effort. They wake up and repeat the same words. They follow routines. They learn from someone else. They perform rituals with discipline. They track streaks. They measure consistency. And when nothing changes, they assume they need more effort, more repetition, more focus, more intensity. What they never question is the assumption underneath. That effort creates alignment. It does not. Effort without state change only reinforces the current state. You can repeat the right sentence 1,000 times. If your inner posture stays the same, nothing moves. Most manifestation practices fail because they treat behavior as the source. They think saying is being, they think doing is becoming. It feels logical, it feels productive, but reality does not respond to rituals. It responds to states. A ritual performed from lack amplifies lack. A habit performed from anxiety stabilizes anxiety. The system is not fooled by form. You repeat affirmations, but your body stays tense. You visualize success, but your nervous system stays alert. You are not manifesting abundance. You are rehearsing desire. Desire is not neutral. Desire signals absence. This is the uncomfortable truth most teachings avoid. People feel safe with rituals. They give structure. They give the illusion of progress. But illusion does not reorganize reality. Reality reorganizes when the internal state shifts, not when behavior repeats. This is why people can practice for years and stay in the same place. They perfect the ritual. They never change the condition. They believe more discipline will fix the problem, but discipline only sharpens what already exists. If the state is misaligned, discipline locks it in. Most people confuse effort with sincerity. They think trying harder means wanting more, but wanting more is not the issue. Wanting is the issue. The field does not respond to wanting. It responds to being. Being is not an action. It is a condition. You cannot reach it through repetition. You arrive there through release. This is why techniques stop working for those who grow. They outgrow the form before they change the state. The ritual becomes noise. At some point, continuing feels heavy, forced, empty. That is not failure. That is feedback. It means the technique no longer matches who you are becoming. Most people misread that signal. They push harder, they double down, and the resistance grows because the problem was never lack of effort. It was misdirected effort. Rituals are tools. They are not engines. They point, they do not carry. Once the state shifts, the ritual becomes unnecessary. And when the ritual becomes unnecessary, forcing it becomes counterproductive. This is where many people feel lost. They ask, what should I do now? The answer is uncomfortable. Less doing, less repeating, less fixing, more honesty about state. Ask a different question. Not, am I doing this right? But who am I being while doing this? That question cuts deeper. If you are repeating from tension, stop repeating. If you are affirming from doubt, stop affirming. Because the repetition is strengthening the doubt. Most people do not want to hear this because it removes the sense of control. Rituals feel safe because they give you something to do. State change feels dangerous because it removes structure. But structure does not create reality. Coherence does. Coherence means your thoughts, body, and assumptions agree. When they agree, there is no effort. Effort appears when parts conflict. The conflict shows up as exhaustion, as frustration, as the sense of pushing against something invisible. That is the sign to stop, not to quit, to recalibrate. Recalibration does not look dramatic. It looks like letting go of the need to prove progress. It looks like allowing silence after intention. It looks like not filling space with technique. When the state shifts, behavior simplifies. You do not need reminders to believe. You do not need routines to feel aligned. You live differently without trying to. That difference is readable. Reality reads being louder than asking. Asking is a signal. Being is a broadcast. The broadcast does not repeat. It holds. This is why people who stop trying often see results. Not because they stopped caring, but because they stopped contradicting themselves. They no longer perform alignment. They settle into it. Settling is not passive. It is resolved. Resolved systems move on their own. Unresolved systems require constant input. Most manifestation effort is input into unresolved systems. That input never accumulates. It dissipates. Change does not come from more fuel. It comes from removing the leak. The leak is the gap between behavior and state. Close that gap and effort becomes irrelevant. Not because effort is bad, but because it is no longer needed. Being is quieter than asking, but it is stronger. It does not persuade. It does not request. It assumes, and assumption is the language reality understands. If this challenges you, pause there. The discomfort is not resistance to truth. It is resistance to letting go of familiar effort. Effort feels noble. Being feels exposed. But exposure is where coherence forms. You do not need to manifest harder. You need to exist differently. And existence cannot be forced. It must be allowed. When you change the state, every technique becomes optional. When you do not, every technique becomes noise. Being is louder than asking. And reality always responds to the loudest signal. Only a few people are ready to stop manifesting. That sentence sounds backwards because most people believe manifestation is something you do more of, not less. They believe effort creates results. They believe repetition creates power, and that belief keeps them stuck. The majority adds action when things do not move. More affirmations, more visualization, more routines, more control, and the more they do, the more confused reality becomes. Not because they are wrong, but because they are noisy. Most people are not blocked. They are misaligned through over-involvement. They treat manifestation like a machine that needs constant input. They press buttons. They check outputs. They adjust settings. But the field does not work like a machine. It works like an ecosystem. Ecosystems collapse when interfered with too often. They stabilize when left alone. The few who understand this do something that looks lazy to others. They stop trying to manifest. Not because they gave up, but because they no longer need to manipulate. They realize something critical. Manifestation is not an operation. It is a condition. When the condition is correct, outcomes appear without effort. When the condition is wrong, effort amplifies the wrong signal. This is why the majority struggles. They mistake activity for alignment. They feel productive. They feel disciplined. They feel like they are doing the work. But inside, nothing has changed. Their identity stays the same. Their nervous system stays alert. Their assumptions stay rooted in lack. And no amount of technique can override that. The 1% does not look special. They are not louder. They are not more intense. They are quieter. They stop asking how to make it happen. They stop managing outcomes. They stop correcting the field. They live from a settled center. That center is not emotional. It is structural. They wake up without negotiating with reality. They move through the day without waiting for confirmation. They act without needing signs, not because they are confident, but because they are congruent. Congruence means their inner posture matches their direction. There is no split between wanting and being, no gap between intention and identity. That gap is where noise comes from. Most people live in that gap. They want something while acting like someone who does not have it yet. They hope while watching. They believe while checking. The field reads the watching, not the words. The 1% understands this instinctively. They do not broadcast desire. They broadcast stability. Stability is readable. It does not fluctuate with mood. It does not spike with excitement. It does not collapse with silence. It holds. That holding is not effort. It is stillness. Stillness is misunderstood. People think stillness means doing nothing. It does not. It means not interfering, not correcting every moment, not reacting to every pause, not filling every silence. The field rewards this because it can work with it. When you stop manipulating, patterns complete themselves. When you stop chasing, alignment settles. This is why outcomes often arrive when you are not paying attention. Not because attention is bad, but because interference stopped. The 1% does not sit around waiting. They live. They focus on what is in front of them. They respond to what is real. They let the rest organize. This looks ordinary. That is why most people miss it. They expect manifestation to feel dramatic. They expect signs. They expect emotion. But real alignment feels uneventful. No rush, no anticipation, no tension, just direction without commentary. This is hard for those addicted to progress signals. They need to feel something is happening. They need proof. The 1% does not. They trust structure, not sensation. They know that when the axis is correct, rotation happens naturally. Songdungtruk does not mean being perfect. It means being internally aligned. Your decisions do not contradict your assumptions. Your actions do not fight your identity. From that place, effort becomes unnecessary, not forbidden. Unnecessary. You can still act, but the action is clean. No pushing, no forcing, no checking. Action becomes expression, not correction. This is why people who reach this state often stop consuming manifestation content. They are no longer looking for fixes. They are no longer searching for permission. They trust the system because they are no longer disturbing it. That trust is not blind. It is experiential. They have seen what happens when they step back. The field responds, not instantly, not dramatically, but consistently. Consistency is the mark of alignment. Chaos comes from mixed signals. Stability comes from coherence. The majority sends mixed signals all day. The 1% sends one. That one signal is being. Being does not announce itself. It does not repeat affirmations. It does not demand outcomes. It exists. And existence is louder than intention. The field does not reward clever techniques. It rewards stillness because stillness allows structure to form. This is the final filter. Those who need to do more will leave here. Those who are ready to stop will understand. Stopping does not mean quitting life. It means quitting interference, quitting the need to supervise, quitting the habit of checking, quitting the addiction to confirmation. What remains is simple: presence, direction, silence. From that place, results do not need to be chased. They arrive because there is nothing blocking them. The field rewards stillness, not because stillness is special, but because it is clear, and clarity is what reality organizes around. When nothing moves, everything is aligning. That sentence feels wrong to most people because stillness feels like loss. Silence feels like abandonment. Lack of response feels like rejection. So when nothing happens, the mind fills the gap with a story. I am being ignored. I missed something. I did it wrong. That story's noise. What you are actually experiencing is a reset, not a reset of desire, a reset of interference. When the field goes quiet, it is not withdrawing, it is clearing. Most people cannot tolerate this phase. They react immediately. They try to fix what they think is broken. More affirmations, more checking, more emotional effort. And with that reaction, the reset is interrupted. Noise returns, patterns stabilize around the old signal again. Stillness is misunderstood because it does not feel productive. It does not give feedback. It does not reassure. But alignment does not reassure. It reorganizes. When water is stirred, you see movement, but you cannot see clearly. When water becomes still, it looks inactive, but clarity emerges. The same principle applies here. When nothing seems to be moving, the system is settling. Old fluctuations are dropping out. Conflicting signals are dissolving. That process looks like absence from the outside. From the inside, it feels like emptiness. Emptiness scares people. They associate it with loss of momentum. So they react. A reaction is the mistake. Every reaction adds energy back into the noise. This is why people oscillate between effort and exhaustion. They never allow the reset to complete. They mistake quiet for failure and rush to correct it. But correction at this stage is interference. Reset means the system is recalibrating, removing excess, dropping distortion. You do not help recalibration by touching it. You let it finish. When you think you are being abandoned, you are actually being released from old patterns. Those patterns relied on your constant engagement, your emotional charge, your commentary. When that engagement stops, the pattern loses fuel. The silence is the fuel being cut. This is why the silence feels uncomfortable. Addiction to movement has not been acknowledged. The mind believes motion equals progress. It does not recognize stabilization as progress, but stabilization is the prerequisite for shift. No system changes while it is fluctuating wildly. First it quiets, then it reorganizes, then it moves. Most people never reach the movement because they panic during the quiet. They interpret the pause as a signal to act. They think something must be done, but the most precise action here is non-reaction. Non-reaction does not mean suppression. It means not adding energy. You notice the stillness. You do not label it. You do not try to escape it. You let it exist. That allowance is what completes the reset. Stillness strips away false momentum. You realize how much of what you called progress was actually compensation. Compensation for doubt, compensation for insecurity, compensation for lack of trust. When those compensations drop, nothing moves for a while. That is not regression. That is honesty. The field prefers honesty. Honest signals are simple. Complex signals are noisy. Noise comes from over-response. Every time you react emotionally to silence, you reintroduce distortion. You think you are helping. You are resetting the reset. This is why people stay stuck at the edge of change. They keep restarting the same cycle. The moment nothing moves, they react. The reaction recreates the old alignment. Then they wonder why nothing changes. Because change requires a quiet window. A window where no one is interfering. When the system finally becomes still enough, something subtle happens. You stop leaning forward. You stop scanning for meaning. You stop asking questions. Not because you forced yourself, but because there is nothing to react to. That is alignment. Alignment does not feel exciting. It feels uneventful. And uneventful is threatening to those addicted to stimulation. But uneventful is where structure forms. Think of construction at night. No noise, no traffic. Work happens quietly. You do not see it, but by morning, something has shifted. Still water shifts realities the same way. It does not announce itself. It does not sparkle. It does not send signs. It clears. Once the water is clear, movement can occur without distortion. But if you keep stirring, clarity never arrives. When nothing moves, resist the urge to interpret. Interpretation is reaction disguised as understanding. Understanding here is not conceptual. It is behavioral. You demonstrate understanding by not interfering, by living your life without checking the process, by staying present with what is in front of you, by not asking the silence to explain itself. That is trust in action, not belief, not hope. Trust is non-reaction. The reset completes when you stop responding to the absence of response. That is the paradox. Those who fail here are not weak. They are impatient. They want reassurance before coherence. But coherence arrives first. Reassurance comes later. If you wait for reassurance, you never reach coherence. The silence you fear is the condition you need. When nothing moves, do not assume nothing is happening. Assume noise is being removed, and do nothing to put it back. Still water shifts realities, because clarity is not created by force. It appears when disturbance ends. Let the water settle. The shift is already underway. If you are waiting for results, you already lost. That sentence cuts through most spiritual language, because waiting feels harmless. It feels patient. It feels responsible. But waiting is a location, and it is not here. When you wait for results, you live in a future that does not exist yet. You breathe in the present, but your attention is somewhere else. Attention is not decoration. It is placement. Where attention goes, identity follows. If your attention is parked in what has not happened, your identity cannot fully occupy what is happening. Quantum does not respond to intention alone. It responds to presence. Presence is not a concept. It is occupancy. Most people believe they are present because they are physically here, but mentally, they are already tomorrow. They are already checking outcomes. They are already evaluating progress. That evaluation pulls them out of the only place where anything can move. The present is not a waiting room. It is the engine. When you treat the present as something to get through, reality treats you the same way. You pass through without impact. Waiting is subtle avoidance. You avoid the discomfort of being fully here by focusing on what will be. You avoid the uncertainty of now by leaning into expectation. Expectation feels purposeful, but it removes you from contact. Contact is what creates change. This is why people who are constantly focused on results feel disconnected. They are not grounded. They are suspended. Suspension feels like effort without traction. They are doing things. They are thinking things, but nothing grabs. Because the signal is fragmented, quantum only responds to the living moment, not the imagined future. The future has no density. The present does. When you are here fully, your actions have weight. Your words have tone. Your decisions carry coherence. When you are waiting, everything becomes tentative. Tentative signals do not reorganize reality. Most people misunderstand manifestation because they treat the present as a bridge to somewhere else. They think once this happens, then I will be here. But here is not unlocked by results. Results follow present. This is the inversion that filters people. Those who cannot let go of outcome orientation will leave this idea behind because it demands something uncomfortable. It demands that you stop using the future as motivation. Motivation rooted in the future creates tension. Tension fractures presence. You do not notice this at first. It feels like ambition. It feels like drive, but underneath it is dislocation. You are not where your body is. Quantum coherence requires full occupancy. Full occupancy means your attention, breath, and action are aligned in this moment. Not in anticipation, not in rehearsal. Here, most people cannot tolerate this because here feels ordinary. No promise, no drama, no countdown, just reality as it is. They want the future because it feels meaningful. The present feels flat by comparison. But flatness is not emptiness. It is stability. Stability is what the field organizes around. Waiting for results is not neutral. It sends a message. It says this moment is not enough. The field agrees, so it keeps you in that state, not as punishment, as accuracy. The moment you stop waiting, something shifts. Not externally first, internally. You stop scanning. You stop evaluating. You stop measuring time against expectation. Your nervous system settles. That settling is not relaxation. It is coherence. Coherence turns the present from a hallway into a platform. From there, actions land. You speak differently. You move differently. You choose differently, not because you are trying to manifest, but because you are here. Being here does not mean giving up goals. It means removing the future as a crutch. You still move, but you move from presence, not projection. Projection splits attention. Presence concentrates it. Concentration without force is power. This is why people who are deeply present seem effective without effort. They are not divided. They are not half living now and half living later. They are all here, and reality responds to that density. Waiting thins you out. You are stretched between moments, never fully arriving. The field cannot anchor to someone who is not anchored. This is why practices that bring you back to the present are not spiritual decoration. They are functional. Breath awareness, body awareness, attention to immediate action. These are not calming techniques. They are grounding mechanisms. They pull you out of imagined futures and into lived reality. From there, manifestation is no longer needed because you are no longer asking reality to change. You are changing how you inhabit it, and reality mirrors occupancy. This is the hard truth. If you are waiting for results, you are outsourcing power to time. Time does not create change. Presence does. Time only reveals what presence already stabilized. When presence is weak, time passes without shift. When presence is strong, time becomes irrelevant. You stop asking when, because now is complete. Completeness is magnetic, not because it wants, but because it lacks nothing. This is why people who stop caring about outcomes often receive them. They did not stop caring. They stopped waiting. They reclaimed the present. They stopped living on credit. Living on credit feels hopeful, but it is debt. You owe attention to a future that may never arrive. Living in the present pays attention in full. No debt, no interest, just contact. Contact is where reality moves. If this message feels sharp, it removes the last hiding place. You cannot hide in effort. You cannot hide in intention. You cannot hide in patience. Only presence works, not spiritual presence. Practical presence, attention where your feet are, breath where your body is, action aligned with now. That alignment flips the switch, not gradually, immediately, because the switch was never in the future. It was always here. Be here, everything else follows. Not because you demanded it, because you finally stopped leaving